covered by Jesus tonight. Lord, although we're very imperfect, God, I thank you that you would come and you would rest with us tonight. Lord, over these next few minutes as we worship and as we call on you, God, we get prepared for the message that you're going to deliver tonight. God, I pray, Lord, that we would actually spend time with you. We would sense your presence. And we'd know when we left that we've been in the presence of the Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. Just close our eyes and think on Him. Let it be about Him. Let it be a song to Him.
No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear up, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
don't have to fix ourselves before we come to you, but it's in the coming to you that you fix us, God. And so I thank you for your reckless love, God, that just pursues us. It pursues us. I pray that you will meet with us tonight, God, that you will change our hearts and our minds to be more like you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You can be dismissed, kids can be dismissed. Joel, you got to stay. You have to stay.
Where's your buddy at? Here. He's up there. No, the puppy one.
He's not here today. I don't know where he's at.
That's her brother. That's her brother. She's been asleep. She's asleep. Hey, Jesse, girl.
Right. Yes. All right, so, if you really want to get the most out of church, it's just like if you're going somewhere to somebody's house and you don't know if they're a good cook or not, your best bet is to eat before you come. Your best bet is to get all you can before you come. Like if you're going, say, I'm going to one of your houses, I don't know if it's going to be good or not. What do I do so I don't go hungry? I eat before I come. Now, I don't really do that, but what I'm saying is if you want the most out of church, if you want the most out of your worship life, if you want the most out of everything that has to do with Jesus, you need to be doing it at home. It needs to be 7 days a week. It needs to be part of who you are. Number one, you need to be learning that word. You need to be reading through it. You need to be understanding it. You need to try to grasp as much as you can, because even those of us who study it all the time don't know it. I mean, we just keep unfolding it, keep unfolding. I can tell you different series that I've taught multiple times from different angles, because every time I see it differently. And so I would just encourage you, get you some meat. That's what I say to you tonight. Get you some meat. Go home, eat it up, and then that way when you come here, you're always satisfied because here is dessert. Right? If you're already full when you come, dessert's always welcome. Nobody ever asks you, are you full when you have dessert, right? It's just, no, I want some. What kind do you want? I don't care. All of it. Well, that's what this needs to be here. And I've been running a lot lately with Good Friday and then Easter and teaching last week and then teaching Sunday, and then I'm going to teach 3 times this Sunday, because I'm going to teach 2 here Sunday morning and 1 Sunday afternoon. I figured it up, and in 9 days I had preached 6 times. And so I said, Rick, I'm so tired. Please, will you hit for me tonight? And so I said, I just want to come. I want to lead worship, and I want to just enjoy it. So when you enjoy Rick tonight, would you welcome him? Give him a big round of applause.
He had to twist my arm. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here tonight. Had a rough couple of weeks. The flu and pneumonia. That ain't playtime, let me tell you. Woo. But anyway, I'm on the mend. Things are better. And but I have a word tonight. Matt called me last week, and I really prayed about what God wanted me to talk about tonight. And I really think He's got a word for us. I want to talk to you tonight about faith in crisis. What happens when you come to that place where your faith has to be exercised? There's a choice to be made. And that's kind of what I want to look at tonight. We're going to be in Numbers tonight, Numbers chapter 13. We're going to look at the last part of 13 and the first part of 14. Yeah, Numbers. There is some good stuff in Numbers. You just got to get in there and find it. Let me set the stage while you're thinking about it. The children of Israel are now at Kadesh, which is where they're supposed to cross the Jordan River and begin the conquest of the Promised Land. Now let me set the timeline for you. They have been in bondage for 400 years. Their forefathers, their fathers, their fathers have been in bondage in Egypt. Over the last course of 12 months, this group that we're going to talk about tonight have seen this. They have seen Pharaoh brought to his knees by the true and living God. There were 10 plagues, 10 contests, of which God won every single one. The final one being the death of the firstborn. They saw the blood, the lamb shed, and the blood applied to the doorpost, and the Passover instituted. They walked out of Egypt free, something that their forefathers only dreamed about. With all the spoils they could carry, they left Egypt, bound for wherever it was that God had for them. They went into the wilderness and got their backs trapped between the Red Sea, 2 mountains of the pursuing armies of Pharaoh. It looked like it was death to Egyptian army, one of the greatest armies on the planet at that time. He carried them down to Mount Sinai where they camped, and he gave them the Ten Commandments. This group that we're talking about tonight saw the rebellion and the idolatry that happened while Moses was on the mountain, and they made the golden calf, and the people rebelled against God, and they saw the anger of God executed when over half their numbers were executed that night because of the sin. They saw that. Now they're in camp. They've been in camp at the base of Sinai for a year, for 12 months. For 12 months, God's given them the law, not just the Ten Commandments. He's given them the law through Moses continually. They have built the tabernacle. They've built the priesthood. God has got them ready to go and to conquer what is in store for them. Now, there's a lesson there that I can't pass up being a Bible teacher. Sometimes God prepares us before the promise. 12 months seems like a long time to me. I don't know about you. But to sit in the desert, receive the law, build a tabernacle, get the priesthood ready, man, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of impatient, and I'm like, can we get this show on the road, God? What are we doing here, God? Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. But God was preparing them for what was in store. Just like sometimes you don't understand why you can't get to the promise yet. Well, it's not time yet. You're not ready. You see, I think what God was doing was he was getting Egypt out of Israel and Israel out of Egypt. He was purging his people in the desert, preparing them for greater things than they could imagine. Okay, so now after a year, 12 months, Moses leads them from the desert of sin down to this Jordan River at Kadesh, and it's time. Now, that's kind of what we picked the story up. Let's see if this is going to work. Whoa! Hey! So they're ready, they're in camp. They can see the promised land. Literally, across the Jordan River is the promised land. So what Moses does is he's decided to send out 12 spies over into the land. Let's check it out and see. Now, was that a mistake or not? Not really sure, but he chose out 12 spies, one from each tribe, and he says, all right, guys, go over and check it out. So they go, and they spend 40 days in the promised land, scoping it out, checking everything out, and this is kind of where we pick up the story here in Numbers. They've come back, and they're given a report, and this is what they say. Look at Numbers 13:26. They came back to Moses and Aaron, and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. And we even saw the descendants of Anak, and the Amalekites lived there, and the Negev, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea along the Jordan. But now notice this. I like these two, Caleb and Joshua. Now I love Caleb. I'm going to say a little bit about Caleb in a minute, but Caleb is a cool, really cool guy. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up and take possession of the land. We can certainly do it. But the men who had gone with him said, we cannot attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And this spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. And they said, the land we explored devoured those living in it, and the people we saw are of great size. We saw the Nephilites there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nilphin. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Now remember the timeline before we get into this. What have these people saw? These people, not their forefathers, not their grandfathers, these people saw God do all of the things that I said in the beginning. They saw it with their own eyes. They experienced the cloud by day, the fire by night, the manna, the quail. They experienced all of that. Every single thing. But how long is their memory? What has happened to these people? What changed their vision when they are poised to take the promise that God has given to them? What happened? Faith is in crisis. They have to make a decision. They have to decide. Now, there's going to be times in your life when you're going to be there. When you're going to face that crossroads where your faith has to motivate you or fear will defeat you. One of the two is going to happen. This is where these people are. They have to do something. They're about to cross over. They're about to break through. But something happens. What happens? There's a little thing that turned out to be not so small after all. And that was a little tinge of fear. Just a little. Notice the wording in this is very interesting. The 10 that come back say, man, it's a great land. There's milk and honey. There's grapes that are bigger than grapefruit. It is absolutely the greatest oasis we've ever seen. But those cities are fortified. Those people look like giants. Can we really do this? You see, fear begins. It starts with a seed. It starts with them hearing the report of the 10, not the 2, and then something happens. They saw the giants. They saw the cities of war. They saw the obstacles, and all of a sudden, and this happens so often to us folks, all of a sudden, God becomes dwarfed by the obstacles. Could God have given this generation the promised land? Yes, he'd already told them. It was theirs. All they had to do was take it. It was there, ready. But because of their fear, because of their doubt, because of what happened, they didn't conquer the promised land. There's some things about fear that I want to point out tonight. Have you ever been in that situation where the obstacle looks so large, where whatever it is you're facing is so nasty, that you get that just that little bitty hint of fear in your life? Can I really do this? I'm going to tell you, folks, I've been doing this right here a long time. 30 some more years than I want to talk about, okay? But there has never been a single solitary time that I have not stood up to walk up here that there was a tinge of fear in my heart. Where Satan goes, are you sure you can do this? Are you really sure this is what you're supposed to be doing? Are you really sure? You see, that's Satan's job, is when you're facing those obstacles, to blow them up and to make them larger than what they really are. Here's what fear did for the children of Israel, and it will do in your life if you allow it a foothold. Fear will paralyze the process of God. They stop dead still. Do you think God intended for them to go down there and stop? No. In fact, if you read the rest of that story, you find out God gets very angry over their lack of faith and their willingness to bow to their fear. It stops the process. There is a process going on, like we talked about. God has brought them here. He's kept them here for a while. He's purged them. He's prepared them. He's got everything ready. Now the next step in the process is to cross the Jordan and begin the conquest. That's the very next step. And all of a sudden, fear paralyzes the movement of God. Some of us wonder why we don't inherit the true promise that God has for us. Let me tell you why. It's because fear has paralyzed your progress. Because God says, knock on that door. God says, go see that sick person. God says, follow me completely. And you go, well, wait a minute, God. Didn't sign up for this. That's a little frightening. It's a little scary. I don't know about that, God. I didn't sign up for all this. God says, if you want to inherit the full blessing, the full promise, you got to conquer your fear. You've got to. Because fear stops it. Fear paralyzes what God wants you to do. You see, sometimes it's not rational when we look at what God asked us to do. These people, of all people, what they had seen, what they had experienced, you would think, man, they would be ready to charge hell with a water pistol because God had provided. God had taken care of every step of the way. But yet they said, God, we can't do this. How many times have you said that? How many times God has challenged you to do something that was scary, that was tough, and you say, I can't do that, God. I can do everything. But I remember God called me to preach years and years and years ago. I was like, okay, God, let's talk about this. I was like, God, I'll be a really good Baptist. I'll go to church. I'll be honored. I'll be hard to get along with. picture, I feel good, whatever. Just don't make me get up there and preach. God said, it ain't up for discussion. You got to conquer that fear. And I remember when I first started preaching my first church, I'd be so nervous on Sunday morning. We had 50 people on a good Sunday. I'm talking about, this was a tiny little church down in Mumford. Loving people, but small. I remember on Sunday mornings, I couldn't even practice. I'd be so nervous because I had to get up and talk. You got to conquer your fear. Satan will use fear to keep us in bondage from receiving what God has for us. You know what? I look back over my last 30 years, wouldn't trade anything for the call of God. Even through all we've been through, God has been faithful. And God has blessed the ministry. We see people saved and baptized. And, you get opportunities to serve God. You got to conquer your fear because fear paralyzes the progress of God. Second of all, fear's perspective changes the true picture. You see, when you start looking at it through the eyes of fear, it doesn't look like it really is. You see, these spies saw large cities, giants, that they could not conquer. That's what they saw. They didn't see a God that was able. You see, that's what happens when you let fear creep into your life. Not only does it paralyzes, but it changes the perspective. The true picture is not what being seen. You don't see how large God is and what God's able to do. You see how large the object is, how big the obstacle is. Let me give you an example. In that valley where the children of Israel lined up against the armies of the Philistines, and they were getting ready to fight, and Goliath walked out, 9 foot 7 inches tall. His beam, his spear was like a weaver's beam. I mean, he was this massive, humongous warrior that had fought from a child up. I mean, he had it going on. What happened to the children of Israel's army? They cowered in fear, and it paralyzed the process of God's army. They couldn't move forward. They stopped seeing who God was and saw who Goliath was. Until fresh eyes, without fear, came and saw him in the name of a little boy named David. You see, folks, that's what fear does. It changes the true picture of what you're looking at. These people stopped seeing the God that was providing every step and saw the giants that were in the land, the walled cities that they didn't think they could conquer. Look at the wording here. He says the Amalekites live there. Man, these are giants. He says, we saw the descendants of Anak. And the Canaanites are there. Man, these are giants. These are warriors. Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They didn't see what was happening. They saw what fear wanted them to see. Then the third thing, fear puts off the promise of God. Puts it off. Now, it didn't stop the promise of God, because the next generation is going to conquer the promised land under the leadership of Joshua. They're going in, they're going to take it, they're going to take it each phase, they're going to win, they're going to do what they need to do. They're going to conquer it. But it did put it off for 40 years. It puts it off. Do you notice, as we look a little further, in Numbers 14, you see, we've seen the report, we've seen the reaction to the report, then you see the people rebelling here. Not only did these 10 that gave a bad report tell the congregation, they go out through the people stirring it up, saying, we can't do this, folks, we can't do this, we can't do this. We're not going to do this, we're not going to be able to do this. Look what happened. That night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt, or in this wilderness, why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword, that our wives and children be taken as plunder? Would it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, should we choose a leader and go back to Egypt? Did they not mention the pity party or what? I mean, are they not wallowing in it? I mean, they're just wallowing. You don't sit there and look holy because you do it too. I do it. I'm like, oh, God, did you really say me to do this? I really don't want to do this, God. I'd go back. I don't want to be here. That's what they were doing. They were whining like little whimpering, spoiled kids. And that's what they were. They're like, oh, let's just go back to Egypt. We'd be better off to work ourselves to death there than die by the sword. Oh, me. They didn't trust God any longer. They didn't trust the God that had brought them to the place where he was going to bring them over and conquer it. You see the rebellion of the people. They totally repelled. Now, notice Moses' reaction. It's almost the same exact thing that happened before. When the people rebelled, and God said, I'm just going to kill them all. I'm going to kill every one of them except you, Moses. I'm going to raise up a new generation of people. I'm tired of them. I'm going to kill them. That's what I'm going to do. Read that story. That's what God says. Moses said, no, wait a minute, God. If you kill them all, what is Egypt going to say about you? You brought your people out of the middle of the desert, and you couldn't take them over, now you're going to kill them and start another one? What kind of testimony is that going to be for you, God? And God says, okay, well, I'm not going to kill them all, but I do not punish them. Now look at what happens. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land, a land full of milk and honey, and give it to us. Oh, do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. This is their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid. You see, Joshua and Caleb are trying to encourage the people not to rebel, not to do this. Come on, let's go. Let's go. But the people refuse. And that's when God gets angry. And God's going to wipe them out. And Moses convinces them not to, and God says, okay. Here is the repercussion of their rebellion. Don't be deceived, folks. There's always repercussion for rebelling against God. And disobedience doesn't have to be open. It can be closed. You can rebel against what God wants you to do. It's not just doing what God don't want you to do. You can rebel in doing what God refuses to do, what God wants you to do. Here's what he says. All right, I'm sending them into the desert. They're going to wander for 40 years. Not one single person outside of Moses, Joshua, and Caleb are coming back. The rest of them are going to die. You realize what their sentence was? They were going to walk in the desert from one funeral to another funeral until everybody was dead because they refused to follow God. You know the reason a lot of people today are wandering lost in a dry desert place in their spiritual life? It's because they refuse to follow God. They allow fear to conquer them, and now they're walking from one funeral to the next, waiting to die. Folks, God's got so much more for us than that. God's got a promised land that's flowing with milk and honey. He's got victory for us. He's got greater things than we can imagine. But we got to conquer our fear. We got to get over that hump of saying, you know, God, I just really don't want to do that. I really don't want to read my Bible every day. I really don't want to witness. I really don't want to be on the praise team. I don't want to teach. I don't want to do this. I really don't want to. God doesn't care what you want. See, the quicker we understand that, the better. God wasn't concerned with what they wanted. God had a plan that he was executing, and he wanted them to follow it. And when they refused, they suffered for it. Get out of the dry place. Get out of the desert and get to the oasis. Get to the promised land. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this walk. And I'm going to close on a positive note. I really do. The next generation under Joshua, now Moses doesn't get to go. You know the story. Moses strikes the rock and starts speaking to it. And his punishment is he can't go to the promised land. So God takes him up and kills him and buries him. And Joshua. Now when Joshua brings them to the Jordan the next time, you read that study in the first part of the book of Joshua. It's really interesting compared to this story. Because when Joshua gets there, Joshua goes, get everything ready. Tomorrow we're crossing the Jordan and we're taking the promised land. There ain't no spies. There ain't no doubt. There ain't no fear. We're taking it and we're going tomorrow. And that's what they do. And by the way, he parts the Jordan for them to walk through just like he parted the Red Sea for the other generation to walk through. And it's cool because when they get there, I was talking to you about Caleb. Caleb is like 80-something years old when they finally make it to the promised land. He's wandering in the desert with the rest of them. And finally, he makes it. And he's 80-something years old. He's old. And you know what he does? He goes, Joshua, I hear there's giants up on the mountain. I want the mountain. My clan wants the mountain. That's my kind of guy, buddy. I'm telling you. Don't you love that? I'm 80 years old. Give me the giants. I can take them. His faith had not wavered since the first trip. He still believed God could give them the promised land, and he still trusted him. You see, there were some tribes that sold out, too. We'll get that. Let's talk about what happened here. The second generation that went in found out some truths. Number one, it's a walk by faith and not by sight. If you're trying to walk by sight, you are defeated before you start. Because the enemy's always bigger than God. If you're trying to walk by sight instead of by faith, your fear will conquer you, and you'll be wandering in the desert, wondering why it's wrong with You got to walk by faith. You can't look at the ability. You can't look at the size. You can't look at the scope of the enemy. If you ever begin to notice that, you take your eyes off your faith in God, and all of a sudden, you're prime candidate to be defeated. You got to walk by faith. This is a walk by faith. When they went in, you remember the story? They go in. The first city they come to is Jericho. Jericho is this huge wall city. I've been there. The walls are like 7 feet thick. No way they could take Jericho. Not possible. God said, here's what you do. Walk around it one time a day for 7 days. 7 days, you walk around it 7 times, blow the trumpet. The walls are going to fall. When they fall, you take the city. Guess what happened? That's what happened. You see, God had a plan. When we walk by faith, God has a plan. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know what the next process, I don't know what the next stage of my life is. I really don't. I'm just having a blast right now. I'm loving Cornerstone. I love being here. And I love what God's doing. Man, it's awesome. But the next step is faith. The next step is faith. And I got to walk each day by faith, realizing that I can't do anything without trusting in God. Trust God for your next step. The second thing they found out, let me tell you something. God promised them the promised land, but he never promised them they were going to have to fight. That's the problem in America today. Yes, they thought they were entitled. Not only is it a walk by faith, but it's a walk by fight and not by ease. You see, somehow in America we think we get saved, we sit down, we show up for church on Sunday, we pay our tithes. You know, wow, we're a great Christian. Let me tell you something. Something I've learned in 30 years of serving God off and on, good and bad, not always where I should have been. But something that I have learned is if you're going to conquer, if you're going to get anything in this life for God, you've got to fight. Satan's not going to let you walk up and take it, folks. Why would he? He's not going to give them the promised land. Those people that had lived there and dwelled there for thousands of years weren't going to say, y'all, come on, y'all, God's people, let me get out of your way. No, they're going to fight every step of the way. They're going to be slaughtered. God's going to give them the victory, but they're going to have to fight. Understand this life is a battle. You got to fight, folks. You got to have faith in God, and then you got to fight the good fight of faith. What did Paul say? Paul said, fight the fight. Be true to the calling. Fight the good fight of faith. What do you think these people were thinking? Do you think they would march into an unoccupied land and God would give them the key to the door? That sounds silly, don't it? But that's what they were thinking. You think that sounds silly, but that's what we're thinking. God, I want it all, and I want it now, and I don't want to have to earn it. I want to be victorious. I want to do the great things for God, but I don't want to have to fight a single battle for it. It ain't going to happen. This life is not a bed of roses that we lay on and then go to heaven. This battle is a fight. Look at the life of the Apostle Paul. Paul fought his whole Christian life. Look at the life of Simon Peter. He fought his whole life to serve God. What makes us think we're better than they were? What makes us think that we can just get saved and not have to go in and take what is ours? We got this mentality screwed up in America, folks. We got it messed up in the church today. You got what you got because God gave it to you and you're willing to fight for it. I'm going to get what I can get by fighting for it. And then the last thing is it's a walk by finishing and never stopping. We can't quit. Now, the second generation that comes along under Joshua, they begin to take the promised land, but they never finish it. If you study that in the history of Israel, they never completely finish the job. They get almost, they wouldn't completely annihilate a nation. They would leave part of the inhabitants, and then they would intermingle with them, and then sin would come in, and they would have to be judged. They never completely finished the job. They never completely got what God promised them because they didn't finish. You see, folks, get all that God has for us. I want it all. I mean, I want everything. So let me tell you, there's a story. There were 2 tribes that said, we want to settle on this side of it. We don't want to go over. We're happy here. We like it here. It's fine. So Moses says, okay, let's talk to God about it. So he talks to God and he comes back with an answer. And God says, you can settle on this side of Jordan, but you've got to go over and help the other 10 tribes conquer the land. So you may settle for less, but it doesn't make your responsibility less. They settled for less, but God said, you're going to pay the same price the rest of the people pay. You're going over and you're going to fight, and you're going to win. You're going to see God's victories. You're going to lose people. You're going to go over and fight, even though you can come back and settle here. Folks, that's what a lot Christians want. They want to settle there. They want to settle before the fight. They want to settle before the victory. They want to settle outside the promised land. Just get me close. That's all I want. Matt, just get me close, brother. I don't want to get there. Just get me close. Because if I get there, it's going to cost me something. No, I don't want to just get close. I want to be right in the middle of the promised land. I want to pitch my tent like Caleb. I want to be on the mountain where the giants are. I want to be in the heat of the battle. I don't want to back down and live on the other side less than what God has for us. So often, you know the greatest enemy of being a great Christian? The greatest enemy of being a great Christian is being a good Christian. Settling. Settling. You know, I go out witnessing, I'm not sold on it. I teach class, or I teach, but I'm not a Bible study. I read the Bible, but I don't read. Folks, that's all excuses. Don't you hear yourself? God didn't say, well, if you can do this, do it. No, God said, do it. I'll take care of the rest of it. God said, you just get up there and you put forth the effort. You finish, I'll take care of the rest of it. I'll do the rest. What you can't do, I will do. That's what God is saying. You do what you can do, God will do the rest. And you will be amazed at the results. We settle for far less. We don't finish. I want to encourage you to finish. Paul said, I've kept the faith, I've finished the course. And now a crown of righteousness is laid up for me. Because he finished the course. Finished the course. People say, well, I'm getting older. Well, I'm getting older. Gosh, I am 55. I really am. Y'all believe that? Y'all, I remember when 30 was old. I remember when Amy was 25, and I was like, oh, she's ancient. And now I'm 55, and I'm telling you, 60 don't look so bad. Really? I'm thinking, I've been knowing Lori like 15 years or so. When at that time again, I'll be like 79, and I'm like, oh my God. If I make it another 15 years, it's going to kill me. But, it's like, ah. But people say, I'm old. One thing I learned from Bill Snow that I will never forget as long as I live. It's funny how God puts men in your life and you learn things from them. Bill Snow always said, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. If you got a pulse, you got a purpose. What's your purpose? Whatever God has got for you. You know what it is. You know where your promised land is. I don't know. I know where I'm supposed to be. But you know what? Get there. Enjoy the fruits. Be willing to fight to enjoy the fruit that God has for you. But the only way you can access this is by faith. I like what, I'm going to turn something on now. There we go. I'm going to look at this quote. This is by Charles Spurgeon, which is one of my favorite authors, favorite preachers, great man of God, did a wonderful work. He said, if our faith be worth anything, it will stand the test. Gilded is afraid of fire, but gold is not. The paste gem dreads to be touched by the diamond, but the true jewel fears no test. It is poor faith which can only trust God when friends are true, the body is full of health, and the business is profitable. But that is true. But that is true faith which holds by the Lord's faithfulness when friends are gone, when the body is sick, when the spirits are depressed, and the light of our Father's countenance is hidden. A faith which can say in the direst trouble, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. It's heavenward. How's your faith? Are you in a faith crisis? You say, well, we don't need any faith nowadays. But if you feel that way, you got a crisis. Because you're never going to conquer. You're never going to be that person living in the promised land without faith. And faith gets tested every single day. You get the phone call, somebody's passed away. You get the phone call, somebody's sick. You get the phone call that something's happened, or you get the news, and your faith all of a sudden is tested. What happens? You're standing at the Jordan River. Your promised land is just over to the other side. And God says, let's go. And all of a sudden you say, I see those giants. I see those big cities. I don't know, God. I don't know. That's when your faith is put to the test. What do you do? What do you do? You've been out to children of Israel and say, I don't think so, God. I'd rather wander lost in the wilderness and desert. I'd rather walk from funeral to funeral and live in death than I have to live in life evermore. Or you can say, no, God, those cities are big. Those are giants. But by the power of God, I'm going to win. I'm going to have victory. I'm going to find it by faith. You know what? Just like if he slays us, we win. If we We stay here, we win. As long as we're living in faith, we win, folks. That's the thing we don't understand. If I go home tomorrow, don't cry for me. I'm going to a much better place. If I stay here, I want to fight. I want to be scrappy. I want to live in the promised land. And I'm going to take on the giants as long as I can. Don't settle for less, church. Quit settling for the other side of the promised land. Live in victory. Live in what God has for you. Because we tell you, faith's going to be tested. Everybody that's been saved any length of time in this building can say, I agree, Rick, my faith is tested daily. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Don't live in this. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time tonight. God, encourage us, Lord. As we look at this story of the failure of the children of Israel, as they were ready, they just couldn't conquer their fear. Help us to take that lesson, Lord, tonight and learn from it that, Lord, there is victory. There's a promise for each one of us to live in. The fullness of your promise for us, that we can conquer it through faith and fearlessness, to conquer that fear that so stops us from moving forward. God, give us the ability, God, to live in that life. Because, God, if we ever experience that promised land, we can't go back. We can't live in that failure anymore. So give us that victory experience, that we can know what it is to experience you on that level. Thank you, Lord, for the church. Thank you for Pastor Matt and this opportunity tonight. God, would you bless us in a very special way. In Jesus' name.
You raise your hand. That's really good. That's exactly what I need, Rick. So you're dead on there. One of the things I do want to point out, I think that's my job, is that he talked about that little bit of fear. That little bit of fear that gets in the way. That little bit of fear is your stumbling block. And I see it not just in like believing for healings, not just things like that, but I see it just in worship sometimes. You see people just standing because they're afraid if they ever call what's really going on, they wouldn't be able to handle it. They're afraid of what might happen if they raise their hand. Maybe not a hand raising. Say, hold on, I'm scared to death, raise my hand. Well, what if God says, let me face? Because I've been there. I'm not big on drawing attention to myself, but I've been there. I had edge where people lay on the face. And God said, get on your face. And I'm like, I'd rather do it than not do it. But what I found out, it's easy to be wishy-washy with your attendance and coming if you're not showing up with an expectation to really meet with God. If I'm just coming to hear Matt, I'm just coming to hear the band, then you probably not going to come. And then another thing is, man, when you got to back these guys up like Rick, he's preaching, man, amen, 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 because there's so many things that are good. He says so many things that I'm so rich, I got all these notes. And you know what, when we agree together, God begins to move, and the Spirit begins to move, because they're coming in together in agreement. And then the last thing that I got is, we'll let comfort keep us from an experience, and we'll let relaxation keep us from revelation. Amen. We'll get so comfortable just coming that we'll miss actually experiencing God. Because we just want to be in our comfortable seat. And then we'll relax so much that we'll actually be so kicked back that the revelation of God is falling on people, but we're not even getting it. And so I'm just saying, the only thing I can do is make you aware. Just say, hey, be aware. Catch it when it comes by. Because the more intent that you seek for it, you'll find it. The Bible's clear about that. You'll seek me and you'll find me when you seek after me with all your heart. Well, if we're just coming in and we're saying, let's seek, we're not seeking after with all our heart. So I'm just saying, I want us to be in a place where when worship happens, you know what, man, every now and then it might be okay. Like, if I'm here, if I actually just am here, and I'm here, it's okay. I know we're breaking the rules by getting out of the seats, but it's going to be okay. You know, it's going to be all right. Randy, I'm sure will love it if you'll raise and you'll be authentic in your worship. But that's it. Let's stand together. We can turn around and greet someone near you. Tell them that you love them, and reach out to those who